Hello, coding enthusiasts! Astronaut B here, ready to embark on a coding journey into the world of functions. Today, we'll explore how to write functions, understand their simple function signatures, and call our created functions. Let's get ready to write functions that will help keep our code organized, efficient, and reusable. As you know, functions allow us to perform specific tasks or operations. We have used them before, even in our very first lesson when we launched a rocket, but we have never created our own. Let's change that. In order to create our first function, we must define it in our program. This allows the rest of our program to see it and use it. A function is defined using the def keyword followed by its name and parentheses. This is known as a simple function signature. Here, launch rocket is our function's name, and it has an empty set of parentheses because it doesn't require any parameters. Lastly, we have the body of the function. This is the code that happens whenever the function is called. In this case, we print rocket launched successfully. Do you remember how we have indented the code blocks for conditions and loops? The function body is indented in the same way, usually with 4 spaces at the start of each line. Here is an example of defining our function and then calling it. Defining the function only creates it. It doesn't actually run the code. When we want to call the function, we just type the function name with the parentheses like this. One of the major advantages of declaring a function is being able to call it multiple times without having to rewrite the body of the code. Now, let's explore calling functions multiple times. By calling launch rocket 3 times, we are able to call the body of our function 3 times, reducing the amount of code we have to write when we want to launch 3 different rockets. Our output would be the following. But what if we want to perform different tasks with functions? That's where coding multiple functions comes in handy. Let's create another function called landRocket that prints out rocket landed safely. Do this in your guided notes now. Great job! It should look like this. We define the landRocket function and print rocket landed safely in the body of the function. Now we have 2 functions, launchRocket and landRocket. Let's use these functions in a space mission scenario. First, we'll launch the rocket, then perform some tasks, and finally, safely land it. This code sequence demonstrates how functions help us organize and execute different parts of a mission. Now, let's design a more complicated function that contains a calculation. We'll write a function to calculate the fuel needed for a mission. In our function, we'll create a variable named distance and set it to 22,500 kilometers. We will also set the efficiency of the rocket in a variable named efficiency and set that to 0.1. In order to calculate our fuel needed, we need to divide the distance by the efficiency. Then we print the fuel needed to the screen. Try this in your guided notes now. Here is the completed code. We can call this function just by saying the function name followed by parentheses, just like this. This runs all of the code that's contained in the function body without requiring you to type out the entire code every time. Let's create one more function that uses an if statement so that we'll be able to get different results based on different inputs. Imagine we're in charge of a space station's life support system. We need a function to monitor oxygen levels. First, define the function named monitor oxygen levels. Then we'll store the current oxygen level from a function called getOxygen, which will return that value as a number. Next, we use an if statement. If our oxygen level is greater than 30, it should display a message saying that our oxygen level is acceptable. Otherwise, it should print a warning that the oxygen level is low. Try creating this method now in your guided notes. Let's take a look at the answer. How can we call this function, and what would be the result on the screen if our getOxygen function returned a value of 35? Try this in your guided notes now. We type monitor oxygen levels, parentheses, in order to call the function. If our oxygen function returned a 35, that value is greater than 30, so oxygen level is acceptable will be printed. For today's task, we'll take a look at how functions can help us create a program that plays music. I found my old guitar on board the spaceship in the cargo hold. I remember how to play notes, but I can't think of any songs to play. We've got 7 notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Let's make a melody using them. We'll use a function called playGuitar to play each note. For example, I could say play guitar A, and we get an A note. Can you come up with a pattern of at least 3 different notes for me to play? Give it a try, and then work on the rest of the musical tasks. And there you have it, coding enthusiasts! We've journeyed through the fascinating world of functions, learning how to write them, understand their function signatures, and call them within our programs. Functions are like powerful tools in our coding arsenal, allowing us to keep our code organized, efficient, and reusable. In our exploration, we discovered that defining a function involves using the def keyword followed by the function's name and parentheses, known as a simple function signature. The body of the function is indented and contains the code that executes whenever the function is called. By calling functions multiple times, we can efficiently execute repetitive tasks without duplicating code. Additionally, we explored the benefits of creating multiple functions to perform different tasks, enabling us to organize and execute complex operations. We also took a look at designing more sophisticated functions, such as calculating fuel consumption and monitoring oxygen levels, which involved incorporating calculations and conditional statements, like if statements, within our functions. Be sure to complete the programming tasks, practice questions, and extension activities before moving on to the next lesson. Remember, in the universe of coding, the possibilities are infinite. I'll see you next time. Hey, hey.